In words that nobody asked for, President Barack Obama, former president, decided to weigh in the most Obama fashion ever on Israel-Palestine. Let's take a listen.
If there's any chance of us being able to act constructively to do something, it will require an admission of complexity and maintaining what on the surface may seem contradictory ideas. That what Hamas did was horrific and there's no justification for it. And what is also true is that the occupation and what's happening to Palestinians is unbearable. And what is also true is that there is a history of the Jewish people that may be dismissed unless your grandparents or your great-grandparents or your uncle or your aunt tell you stories about the madness of anti-Semitism. And what is true is that there are people right now who are dying who have nothing to do with what Hamas did. And what is true, right? I mean, we can go on for a while. And the problem with the social media and trying to TikTok activism and trying to debate this on that is you can't speak the truth. You can pretend to speak the truth. You can speak one side of the truth. And in some cases, you can try to maintain your moral innocence, but that won't solve the problem. And so if you want to solve the problem, then you have to take in the whole truth. And you then have to admit nobody's hands are clean, that all of us are complicit to some degree. I look at this and I think back, what could I have done during my presidency to move this forward as hard as I tried? I've got the scars to prove it. But there's a part of me that's still saying, well, was there something else I could have done? That's the conversation we should be having. Not just looking backwards, but looking forward. And that can't happen if we are confining ourselves to our outrage. I would rather see you out there talking to people, including people who you disagree with. If you genuinely want to change this, then you've got to figure out how to speak to somebody on the other side.
Oh man, all right, okay, lots to say. If anybody wants to know why I viscerally hate Barack Obama, that's actually probably the best clip, because you could look at it one way, and this is how most liberals do it, like, what an eloquent man. He's able to summarize both sides and bring it holistically.
Nuanced.
It's so nuanced. A, it's not nuanced, but B, he literally was the president. He had the power. He actually, at one point, had the ability to change these circumstances. And he hemmed and he hawed and he did exactly what you talked about previously. He's like, well, you know, it's like my hands were tied and all of this. And there's so many different things, you know, from the Middle East and so many other policies that he pursued that actually did help us get to where we are right now. It's funny, you could look at it from a right angle and a left angle, actually, to give both the pathways to creating this situation. But most importantly, that is such a helpless and a feckless way to look at it, because it takes power away from basically every person who is involved in the situation. And so that is why I truly despise Barack Obama, because in my opinion, he was smart enough to know better, and he was a good enough politician to actually try and to change some of these systemic problems that he talked very eloquently about in 2006 to 2008. And by 2009, basically just washed his hands, gave up, and now he's an Instagram president. Him and his wife are Netflix brands. They're not even human beings now at this point. This is a perfect example. This is calibrated to keep his Netflix deal and his dumbass National Park series, not to actually do anything. That's the guiding North Star of his life at this point.
Yeah, Mr. Content creator, personal brand dude has a lot of gall to be castigating the TikTok activists for not presenting a wholesome picture to his liking. And that was the part, I mean, I have a million things to say about this, but that was the part that to me was the most enraging and also the most classic Obama, rather than, digging in on what you could have done when you were president, which he gives a nod. Oh, I think about maybe what could I have done different? But really the problem is all of you people out there on TikTok, and maybe you need to just get out there and talk to someone who disagrees with you. Or maybe, Barack Obama, you could get on the phone to your buddy, Joe Biden, and actually exert some influence on someone who has some real power to change the situation rather than just lecturing young people about being on TikTok. I mean, that's the part that's so irritating to me, is he says, he has this quote, you have to admit that all of us are complicit to some degree.
It's like more than us. But
maybe, but only one of us was president of the United States for 8 years, okay? So, and only one of us is besties with the current president of the United States, by the way. So perhaps some of us are more complicit than others of us. That's the part that most enrages me. The other thing is it's just so classic Obama too. It's the same red state, blue state formulation, where he has to go out of his way it's classic nuance trolling too. This is the definition of nuance trolling, which listen, no one is gonna deny. The history is complex. There are a million podcasts that I recommend you listen to or books you can read to really understand the ins and outs of the deals that were crafted and rejected and who rejected them and why and how we got to this, strange situation to begin with and, all the events that unfolded. There's no doubt that that is all very complex. But also the current situation is actually not that complex. The immediate situation is there is mass civilian death, huge indiscriminate bombing, and the risk of a huge regional, if not world war on the table. Those pieces are actually not complex. I don't need you to nuance troll over that. I don't need you to wring your hands about how difficult and how complex it is, et cetera, because actually some of the both geostrategic pieces here and the moral pieces are very, very clear. So that's why I find all of that so irritating and so enraging. And this man never pops up to do anything useful whatsoever. The only thing he really cares about is burnishing his own legacy and trying to preserve his own legacy. But in terms of actually pushing policy or pushing the very powerful people that he has tons of sway with in any sort of positive direction, he's got nothing to say about
Everything
that.
he said is technically true. It's it is technically true that you can't have a full picture on TikTok. It is technically true that everyone at some point, or every U.S. policymaker, I would say, is complicit.
I would argue I've seen some TikToks
Americans
that were more illuminating than what he just said right there.
Sure. I mean, he's you can't tell the whole picture. You can't get both. I agree. I agree that much of modern online discourse is cancerous, but I also am always reminded that that discourse is equally cancerous. And it's a helplessness, it's a powerlessness, it's the ability to try and assuage the feelings of liberals without actually doing anything. That was if you want to really know what he invented more than anything, it was that. It was the celebrity president, the man who does nothing. And you often hear that. You're he was the most eloquent president we ever had. And it's always is that eloquence? Because real eloquence, real power was the ability to combine rhetoric and the actual force behind it to the force of action, from words and to translate into something. He never actually mastered the second part, but we are also, we're also anxious to be led by such a great man that we're willing to just forget what real leadership is supposed to look like. Anyway, I can go on forever, as people can see. This is something that sticks deep for me with Barack Obama, and it's good to see absolutely nothing has changed on his front.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.